Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning and good evening for those of you who are to the east. My name is Mike Wild, representing Certified D. And as you'll notice by the graphic we've got on the screen there, we're today launching our new brand, CredSure, which is our redefining the future of credentials, with credentials anchored on blockchain. And today, I'm going to take you through what are digital credentials, why are they important, and really talk about some of the key sort of 101 guide to those different aspects. The overall webinar will take about 20 minutes, and then at the end of that, there'll be an opportunity for Q&A. Please feel free to add any questions you've got in the chat, and we'll take those at the end. But without further ado, I'll start the webinar. So, yeah, what are digital credentials and why are they important? And what really are going to be your key takeaways from the webinar today? So, as I said, we're going to cover what digital credentials are, why are digital credentials becoming more important in the current job market, and what are the common myths and some of the latest trends that we see in digital credentials. So digital credentials cover a whole range of different certificates, badges, and they're, in essence, are all verifiable. There's different types of credential. A credential, as I said, can be a certificate, can be a badge. It can also be much more than that, and it's very different to a traditional paper-based certificate. If you think of the restraints you get with a paper certificate, you can put a name, course name, and the issuer details, or the typical education institute who's issued that certificate. When it comes to a digital credential, there's so much more data that can be added to that, and I'll cover that in a bit more detail. Also, from an issuance and verification perspective, there's many drawbacks that go with the traditional methods of issuing certificates and badges, but you can digitize that process, which unlocks a whole range of data analytics, and also a seamless one-click verification, which really changes the owner of that credential from being the issuer to the recipient, and it therefore becomes self-sovereign. And they're really some of the key benefits of digital credentials. There's a whole other range of benefits that we're going to cover in future webinars in terms of how we believe that CredSure can redefine the future of digital credentials. But today, as I mentioned, it's going to be a kind of initial introductory session. On the right there, you'll see some examples of some of the badges. Everything that we do in terms of CredSure can be delivered inline and on brand, and also highly customizable to fit with exactly what you're issuing. So whether that's a multi-language certificate, a multi-language badge, it's all possible, and it's very straightforward and simple to get you on board into the platform. In terms of what lies at the heart of a credential, it's really the verification page. And that's the point of kind of that first interaction, that first touch point that either a verifier or even the recipient will have with that credential. When they complete a course, when a product's been certified, that's the real touch point, that first moment of truth, when that verification page or the link to that verification page is made visible. And it contains a wealth of information on that credential, much richer set of data than typically exists with a paper certificate. So you'll obviously have the recipient name or organization. As I said, there's a range of different use cases, not just to individuals, but also to organizations. It'll also include the details of the issuer. And I'll cover a little bit more as we go into this presentation in terms of what that means, in terms of how you can understand and see the transparency of that issuer. Essentially, we anchor all of our credentials on blockchain, and I'll cover a few more of the reasons why we do that on the next slide. But the verification page is really that first touch point. It's a place where the additional metadata or skills and competencies or additional information can be viewed. It's a place where the credential can be verified. You'll see in the graphic on the right there, we've got the different checkpoints that verification process goes through in terms of the validity date, in terms of the issuer signature, and finally to ensure that it's a valid blockchain credential. It's also very easy to verify a certificate. So someone can simply scan a QR code or a unique link that's been shared with them. They click that and it'll open it up on any device and they can go through that verification process. It's also the place where you can share that credential as well. So why do we use blockchain? Why do we believe that that's the most important part? Blockchain has a multitude of use cases, but one of its key features is the fact it's cryptographically secure and it's a distributed ledger, so there's no single point of failure. And by using blockchain to anchor credentials, it really means that there's no middleman. So as I mentioned before, it's a self-sovereign or easy from a third-party verification process to be sent or verified. Increased security, so it's immutable, it's tamper-proof, and it's secure. And in terms for a fraudulent perspective, I'll cover on one of the next slides in terms of the various different fake certificates that exist and how often that happens and the impact that has on organizations, the impact that has on employment, recruiters, and also individuals when they've been issued with those certificates. You can also digitize your credentialing process to promote awareness about your brand. And that's another topic that we'll cover in a future webinar, and how really badges particularly can be used as a great asset or tactic within your overall digital marketing to really drive revenue generating activities or lead generation if you're offering specific courses. Like a lot of things, when you digitize a process, you also get access to a rich set of data analytics. Our application's built for small organizations right through to enterprise. So whether that's understanding insights in terms of different training centers or assessment partners, or even if it's different workflows and approvals, you get a rich set of data that covers not just in terms of credential issuance, but also credential verification and credential shares across different social media. So great insights and that can really be shared with different business intelligence tools and allow you to make informed decisions in your organization. As I touched on, really, those credentials are made for sharing. And that's really a key component when it comes to the end recipient of it. And it really makes it much easier to share your qualification on different social media channels, whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's Facebook or Twitter. And that has two effects. One, it enables the individual to showcase their talent. It also enables an organization who's been issued with a credential to share that with another organization who's to verify it, and really helps in terms of promoting your organization across the different social media channels and driving traffic back through to your designated landing pages. As you can see on your screen there, we offer multi-language in terms of the certificate issuance. So whether that's German, Spanish, Hindi, we can cover all different languages. So why are digital credentials becoming more important in the current job market? It's a question we get asked very often, and one that is only growing in terms of both in terms of interest and the demand around the topic. As I mentioned, that 3 of the articles that you can see on the screen were actually in 2023 alone. Yeah, in terms of fake certificate rackets, in terms of people duping other people, also politicians, and then one from 2021 in Germany, where there was fake certificates from a COVID perspective. There's a whole different, set of fraudulent activities that exist, both in terms and the impact that has on the individual who may think that they're getting a legitimate certificate, badge, or credential, and also the prospective employers. But what is sure is that by digitizing the credentialing process, by anchoring that on blockchain, it presents an immutable way in which credentials can be issued, can be verified, and also adds trust, transparency, and accountability to the issuing organization and also the recipient of that credential. So hopefully, with the right drive from industry, from issuing organizations, the news articles that you see on the screen will become a thing of the past. So what are the key benefits to employers of digital credentials? Obviously, by eradicating a lot of the fraudulent certificates that exist on the market, it means that employers can get a clear view in terms of what the candidate's skills and competencies are. At CredSure, we've anchored all our structure in terms of credentials based on the ESCO standard, which is the European Skills, Competencies and Occupations Framework. And that can easily be added to different metadata frameworks or skills frameworks. And what that does is really highlight one of the real powerful aspects when it comes to a digital certificate, for example, compared to your traditional paper certificate. As I said, a paper certificate is limited to the size of the certificate itself, but the rich set of data that you can have underpinning a certificate when it's digitized, there's really no limit. So skills that someone has gained on that particular course, the duration of that course, what type of learning it was it blended, was it in classroom, or was it online? How long did it last for? So not all diplomas, degrees or courses are the same. And it's very important to understand the difference in terms of where someone studied, what topics they studied on that course, how long they studied on that course for. And that really helps the end employer or those recruiters in terms of hiring the right candidate. And the second point really is it also reduces the time to hire. You obviously go through your traditional sourcing process, finding the right candidates, doing several rounds of interviews. You may even do competency tests or assessments as part of that interview process. And then typically at the final stage, you'll then say, okay, well, let's verify, what certificates has someone got? What's their proof of education? And quite often you'll find that when that verification happens, you're going to find that maybe 20% or even more of those applicants will fail because those documents don't verify. So it makes much more sense to verify those documents to start the process. It's a one-click process you can do once it's been shared by the recipient, by the individual, by the candidate, to really reduce your time to hire. And that then feeds into the next point. There's an ever-growing demand in terms of, or skill shortages that exist in international arena, whether that's skill shortages in healthcare, whether that's skill shortages in logistics or IT. And one of the ways to address those skill shortages is through international mobility and finding the right talent, and if you will, borderless recruitment or skills without borders. So there's various challenges that exist in different countries. And one of the ways in which those can be addressed and reduced is by digitizing that process. So right from the education point of view, from the credentials, the certificates, the diplomas, the degrees, or the badges that have been gained by that individual to showcase their skills and competencies. And then that can really be built on it in terms of the visa application process or the different background check documents that need to take place in order to facilitate that international mobility. So really, when we talk about redefining the future of credentials, it doesn't just start and end at education. It's really the beginning of that journey that opens up a whole world of opportunities for both the individual, the employer, and the recruiters who are involved in that process.